Hello everyone. In this explainer, we're going to tackle a core tension that you'll see again and again in your AMC course, that delicate balance between our freedom as individuals and our need for collective security. It's a challenge that it shapes the very fabric of the English-speaking world today.
So let's start with this really thought-provoking idea, which just perfectly captures the paradox we're looking at today. The measures that are designed to make some of us feel safe can actually make other people less secure. This is a super critical perspective, and we'll come back to it. So hang on to that idea as we move forward. Now, just so you know where this fits in, this lesson slots directly into your AMC curriculum. It's part of Theme 1, Faire Société, how we build a society together, and it's right at the heart of our second axis of study, libertés et sécurité. Honestly, understanding this tension is absolutely crucial for analyzing the contemporary English-speaking world. So this is our guiding question, our problématique for today's analysis. How do societies actually handle this constant push and pull between freedom and security? We're not looking for some easy, simple answer here, but instead, we're going to explore the really complex ways this whole issue is debated and managed. We'll circle back to this right at the very end. Here's our game plan. First, we'll dig into the foundational pact of society. Then we'll look at how new threats are creating totally new demands for security. After that, we'll get into the paradox of technology. And finally, we'll look at how you can take all these ideas and use them to build a really powerful analysis for your assessments.
Okay, let's dive right in. To really get a grip on this tension between freedom and security, we first have to understand the foundational concept that modern states are built on, the social contract.
In essence, this social contract is this kind of unwritten deal we all make. Think about it. We agree to give up certain absolute freedoms, like the freedom to do literally whatever we want, whenever we want, and in exchange for that, we get the state's protection. It's how we get security, order, and how our most important rights get protected.
And this timeline is a great way to see that the social contract isn't some fixed ancient document. It's a living agreement that's always evolving. Just take the work pact, for example. After World War II, it became about working for protection with the rise of the welfare state. But today, well, you could definitely argue it's a much more precarious deal, something we see in all the debates around the gig economy, where flexibility for companies like Uber often comes at the cost of security for workers. The contract is always being renegotiated.
And that idea of renegotiation is so important because today it's happening at lightning speed. The very definition of what security even means is changing, and this is putting huge pressure on that traditional social contract.
This quote just perfectly sums up the modern situation. Conflicts today often operate in this gray zone, below the level of what we would have traditionally called a war. So what you're seeing here on this slide is a really crucial contrast. We've shifted from a world of traditional warfare between states to a new reality of what's called hybrid warfare. These new conflicts, they're fought on digital battlefields, and they use invisible weapons like disinformation to try and destabilize society from the inside.
And what do these hybrid threats actually look like in the real world? Well, as you can see here, they're things like cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, think hospitals or power grids. They're disinformation campaigns that could spread on social media to create division. They're covert operations that are really hard to trace. All of these threats target the very trust that holds our societies together. And that forces states to look for new and, often more intrusive ways to provide security.
And this brings us right to this central dilemma of our time. The technology we use to fight these new threats often poses its own risks to our most cherished civil liberties. It's a real paradox, a double-edged sword.
So we have to ask ourselves, what is the price of this new technological security? Let's explore this question through a really important case study: facial recognition technology. On the one hand, the promise is pretty clear. This tech can help police identify suspects and boost national security. But the perils, on the other hand, is just as stark. It chips away at our right to privacy, it opens the door to mass surveillance, and it creates a huge risk of discrimination. And here's the crucial point. This technology is not neutral. A major U.S. government study found significant racial bias, with these systems being way less accurate for people of color. This has led to huge, real-world controversy. For instance, civil liberties groups in the UK are challenging the London Metropolitan Police's use of live facial recognition. And this takes us right back to that quote we started with. For some people, this tech provides security. But for others, it creates insecurity, the risk of being wrongly identified by a flawed algorithm.
Okay, let's switch gears and make this really practical. For your AMC assessments and for the baccalaureate, you need to be able to take these concepts and build a strong, structured analysis. So let's see how to do that.
A super powerful tool for this is the idea, example, explanation structure. It's simple. You start with a clear argument. You back it up with a specific example, like the ones we've just been talking about, and then you explain the connection, analyzing how that example actually proves your idea. This is the absolute key to a convincing paragraph.
And to really level up your analysis, you want to start integrating this kind of precise academic vocabulary. Using terms like to infringe upon, a trade-off, or systemic bias will show your examiner that you have a really sophisticated command of the topic.
All right, so let's wrap this up. What are the essential takeaways from our analysis of this permanent tension?
Well, first, the social contract isn't set in stone. It's a constant trade-off. Second, these new hybrid threats are forcing us to renegotiate that trade-off. Third, technology is a total double-edged sword in this fight. And finally, and this is so important, the ongoing debate about where to draw the line isn't a sign of failure. It's actually a fundamental characteristic of a healthy democracy.
So, let's circle all the way back to our guiding question. How do democracies navigate this tension? Well, the answer is they don't find a final solution. They manage it. They manage it through the messy but vital processes of democracy, continuous public debate, legal challenges, and political negotiation. This tension isn't a problem to be solved, but a condition that has to be constantly and very, very carefully managed.
So, I'll leave you with this one last question to think about. As technology gets more and more powerful and threats get more and more complex, this is the question that your generation is really going to have to answer, and it will, without a doubt, shape the future of all of our societies. Thanks for your attention.